Yeah, thank you. No, you've got the internal audit findings. I'd like to see the whole report.
Now we'll do that. That's later. We haven't got to them yet. The internal audits reports are a separate item.
Okay.
All right. Well, nobody else? Let me just see. No, there's only me on the list here. So I will ask somebody to move that the Risk and Assurance Committee receives this report and notes the work program to address the Ernst & Young control findings for the annual report 2023-24 and the corporate plan process for the 2024-34 long-term plan. Will somebody please move that? Moved by Liz, seconded by Lawrence. I will put the motion. All those in favour will say aye. The contrary, no. The ayes have it. Now, Rach. Are you ready? Rach and Kelly are coming up. Okay, help us out. Jocelyn is with us.
Got my mic on and my.
Can we?
So it's
Can
picking up from here.
Can you tell me? Is the IT reboot all done and fixed, or what?
I believe it is. I believe it is, and I believe Jocelyn is with.
Oh, now I know what these people on airline entertainment systems have to do, and it's got to reboot all the bloody time. Okay. Rach and Kelly, lovely to see you again. Okay. Who's going to start?
You can.
Thank you. There you go. Well, you go, Kelly.
Good morning. We'll take the paper as read and open to questions. I just want to highlight the quarter two. Most of our work was focused on recruitment. So we recruited the business partner health and safety role, which is Jenny, who's sitting down the back there. So she's been with us since late January, and the people and capability operating model review. So when we get to the policy piece, that largely hasn't changed since the last update. What you'll see in quarter three is that most of these move to that green, which is on track and progress, because there's a detailed plan that sits behind all of these policy reviews. And with that, we will open for questions.
Well, I think I'd just like to note that I see Liz. I just wanted to note in number 13, the amount of work that is there in terms of health and safety wellbeing policies which are under review or due to be reviewed. And we had only one accident. Somebody got a foot crushed, which was quite a serious accident. Having noted that, Liz, and then Bernard. Okay.
Yeah, thanks. Really good report. How do we solve this problem of the abuse from the public? It's noted that it's continually being raised. Do we need to put signs up at all our frontline areas saying we have a zero tolerance and you'll be trespassed if you breach that policy, or how do we fix that? Because it's really quite some concern.
You get this everywhere these days, don't you?
Yeah, unfortunately, it is the climate we're working in, and every council is facing it. It's a common topic. Just about every week, the council's putting out a message saying, how are people dealing with this situation? From people getting followed home because they've come in and interacted with a council worker, through to the aggression that's faced within council premises. So the Health and Safety Committee recently workshopped this as well, and will be presenting back to SLT in the following months on what those recommendations look like as well. And legal have been doing some work on reviewing our whole trespass policy to empower our managers to make those decisions at the time as well. So we'll do some training around that as well. So
just want to give us some signage around what our policy is.
yeah, we do have some signage, and we also have on our external facing website information about the zero tolerance approach. So and really what we can just do is keep reporting it to the police when we know their names or a description, so then police can follow up with them and say it's not okay.
Are there repeat offenders
We do have some repeat offenders, and then we have some coming through social media channels and things like that as well as face to face.
Yes, in fact, I was gonna ask about that, whether we're monitoring abuse on social media.
Yeah, we do, and the comms team have a good process in place that they will block people from our pages, and if they are threatening, then they must stop them.
The world is getting stroppy, yes, okay.
Thank you.
Bernard, yes.
So just, page 45, we talked about visitors to a council workplace. And I raised this at the previous meeting when we were dealing with swimming pools. And you said that did not list, only dealt with council staff. And I notice here, wouldn't you include visitors using the aquatic centre as a council workplace or not?
Yeah, so I guess it falls into both categories. When we're talking about visitors into our workplace, we're talking about them coming into our offices and places like the depot,
Yeah.
not our public spaces, which are parks, pools, libraries. Where the obligation and responsibilities are a bit different, so.
Okay, then I noticed there's no mention this time of the swimming pools or aquatic centre. Is there a reason?
Sorry, and what's,
Well, you usually give a report of the incidences that happen.
so. Where we have changed is looking at the severity of those cases, so that coming to this committee are the moderate to severe incidents that we provide in more detail. All of the other ones we consider minor, and we're not reporting in detail to this committee.
It's just that I found it useful that the 2 meetings ago, when you gave a whole list, and it looks like less and less information is being provided to this committee.
So what we're focusing on now are the trend identifications rather than each individual incident that's occurring, so then it's more that you can do what.
And then on page 40, which the chair has already mentioned, the fifth part there, it says, worker was forced to fall on to the left, getting the rest of my body. It goes from past tense to present tense. The roller then ran over my leg.
What page you on, Bernard? Sorry.
Page 450.
This is the major incident that occurred here.
No, just with the grammar.
Oh, grammar, I'm sorry.
Yes, apologies.
Yeah.
Look, is there any, oh, Janet, me, yes. I see you, please go. Yeah.
I just wanted to follow up on the safety and aggression and that kind of environment that we find ourselves in. If it's an issue that's facing all councils, is it a work stream for local government New Zealand? Is it with trying to team up with other councils to try and roll out some kind of nationwide campaign? Because those issues that are common across all councils, if we can get them feeling that. And those like full news and stuff, then it might be something that we could address, because it is really serious. And it extends not only to elected members, but also to members of our advisory groups. I've had a comment from a business who supported one of our projects and has been subject to abuse. So it's not just an organisational problem, because we're particularly outward facing councils, and councils in general are, but us in particular, it impacts on community members as well. So it's something I'd really like us to focus on really hard before we have a serious incident.
Please do, Rach.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. Jenna, it certainly is an area I think we can look at and how we can approach that from a connected perspective with other councils. I do know that quite some time ago, probably about 3 years ago, Christchurch City Council did quite a significant campaign around it. And that had a big impact. but not only on external people, but also the staff that were experiencing it. So I think that it is something that we can look at and that we can engage with LGNZ and start a conversation. So yeah, that's a good idea.
Can I just add one further thing on that? So what we have done in this quarter is look at the last 6 years of incidents relating to aggressive behaviour to identify where those trends and peaks are occurring. And what we can see in that is that we do definitely get more aggressive behaviour and threats targeted at council staff in the build up to Christmas. And then it backs up a bit. So where we'll go with that is looking at what do we do as we get closer to those peak periods.
Jocelyn, we see you. Welcome. We can see you online now. There you are. And I understand you've got a question, so please proceed.
Thank you. Nice to see you all there. Nice to be able to hear you. Yeah, so thank you for this report. I suppose my question relates to, obviously you want it to be as healthy a work environment inside the buildings and outside everyone. And I suppose some of that is the actions and decisions that people make, but also based on, I suppose, what controls there are in place. Oh, sorry, that's just the cat. And that then sort of ties into the policies. And so I see we've got a list of the policies that are listed there and when they're going to be reviewed. And I think we had this last time as well. But I suppose I'm interested to know how many of these have been pushed out since the last time this paper came to us.
And so we haven't pushed out any. We mentioned before the Q2 period, we focused on recruitment and the P&C operating model and dealing with the summer incidents that were happening, which we saw increase in car accidents, which were minor, but we wanted to get comms out and focus on that at the time. And most of our policies were scheduled to start a review in Q3, which we have now, they're all underway.
You're on target, Joss. No slippage.
Right.
Yeah, so I suppose, and I understand why things do get pushed out, but I think it would be useful just to, to have an idea about how these things are being delayed, the time over which these are being delayed. And I've got some similar type of comments in the next paper we have as well, as that temporal perspective as well.
So these haven't been delayed.
Okay.
The schedule that we put in place in Q1, and they are running to track. We don't have any slippage underway at the moment.
Okay, that's good to hear. That's good to hear.
Thank you very much. Thank you,
Yeah.
Jocelyn.
Thank you. And if I could just, through the chair, ask, I see that Mark is still there, just ask a quick question from the previous paper, and because it was only just this paper that I've been reconnected. And that, so in that last paper, it talks about some learnings for the long-term plan. I'm wondering whether some of those learnings are also appropriate to our annual plan, which we will be going into at the end of the year.
Good question. Jocelyn, Mark will respond. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, councillor. Look, absolutely. We are applying those learnings currently to the annual plan. We have an annual plan oversight panel that we're working on to develop and finalise our information document that will go out to all ratepayers. So absolutely, we are applying those learnings to not only the next long-term plan, but the annual plan. And Councillor Coe actually did make a comment that she is pleased with the progress that we're making in that space.
Thank you. That's great to hear. Thank you.
Thank you. David, you're next, and then Ken, right?
Thank you. You commented that you're on schedule, and that's a lot better than in progress, but we don't know the schedule. When is this HR 13020 review complete by you, and then what's the plan for does it get signed off at senior leadership team or council or where? Now, we can actually see it, no, I don't want to see it, but when will it be done?
As Kelly referred to, there is a detailed plan around this. It's a very much at a management level. There's also a process that we need to go through, because some of these policies aren't just simply a paper policy. They're supported by systems and tools that we actually need to review, ensure they're fit for purpose, such as a care register, such as a review of Vault, which is our system. Once we've gone through and drafted the policies, or the health and safety team has, then needs to go through an engagement process with staff, needs to go to PSA, go through to SLT for sign off. So there is a process we need to go through, but I'm really confident, absolutely confident, that the health and safety team got it in hand and making really good progress in terms of delivering that.
It's 3 years late and something you can do about that. What's late is late, but you still haven't told me what your end date is. You've got a whole lot of processes that you've described, but what are you saying March next year? Are you saying Christmas? When is this thing going to be not over almost a page, but one thing, our policy has been resolved. It's in place.
Kelly actually has it in front of her at the moment, which is all the detail, which we can share it at a high level post this meeting with people if they're interested, but it's really getting into the nitty gritty. But what I'll do is I'll let Cal talk to and give you a sense of when we expect to see that completion.
So I can talk to that particular policy. So that has not been a simple review with a few word edits. It has been a whole rewrite. We go out to consultation this month with staff. That's allows a 2-month period before it goes to SLT for approval in May. So that makes sure we've got time to engage with the unions, with staff, with the health and safety committee. SLT will hopefully approve in May, and then we're looking at implementation in July. And that's because with that particular health and safety policy, we have other considerations like the health and safety management system, which we also need to roll out at the same time. So then it's a full implementation of that policy, and we're not rolling out policies before we have processes and systems that sit behind it that are updated. So for the health and safety policy, will be implemented in July.
Right, so in our August meeting, we should be hearing that. So it's been thank you.
Thank you very much. Cam, you're next. Cam, you're next.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Interestingly, just going back to some of the Facebook comments and stuff, because I'm quite an avid Facebook person. I was chatting with Claire Roper, who's part of the communications team at Porirua City Council, and they actually use filters on your Facebook page, which won't even allow some comments to be published, and they then get a list of yes, no, like put that through. I really like the sound of that, because of the fact that if it's not there, other people don't see it and they don't feel like they can join on the bandwagon. Do you know, it may not be your area of expertise, are we employing something like that as well, which automatically filters comments and doesn't allow them to be seen until we think it's okay?
I'm not sure, sorry, but we can follow up on that and come back to you. We can, as Brendan might jump in.
Yeah, it was just something
We're
that.
using AI and AI overlay to identify potentially aggressive commentary. Brendan, are you aware of anything?
We do a little bit at the moment. So it's a bit of a step to implement that, you know, from not doing it to blocking. We are exploring filters in that team, but it is one of those things that kind of needs a bit of work done in the background, and there's a resource and requirement too. But we have in some instances turned off comments for some lists that have gone up. Yeah. Stop feeding to the truth and people don't see the thank you.
So, Brandon, we do in fact have a moderator of some sort for the website, right? But is that done sort of on an AI type basis or a keyword basis, or is it done for everything that's posted?
Not technically like that moderator. We've got someone that sits behind that manages social media. And then after hours, we have a resource through our after hours support that looks after it. You know, anything significant that get forwarded through. But no, technically we don't have a moderator at this stage, but it was something that we are continuing to explore as you know, as things heat up in this space. I think we've only really noticed it the last little while, but something that's front in the one.
And it's going to increase, I would suspect. Anyways, thank you, Brendan, for that. Mark, you wanted to raise a point.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Look, just moving away from social media, moving towards emails for staff and all elected members. So we also have a policy in place where we will and we have blocked emails. So if there are emails of an aggressive, abusive nature, they're quite frequent. We have a process, we have an internal process where we will block them. Just for information.
Lawrence.
Thanks for opening that up, Mark. Questions from me in there. Can you outline what our process is in dealing with blocking emails? I've recently had a number of, or two or three members of the public who say that some of the emails have been blocked. But they weren't made aware of the fact that they were being blocked. So is there any process of feedback or communication to the person who is being blocked, that they're about to be blocked due to such reasons, and giving them an opportunity to withdraw those emails before there is a process of blocking takes place?
Yeah.
Because from what I understand, the blocking currently happens without any notification to the person who is a member of our community and who we interact with regularly as elected members. And that, to be frank, pisses them off. Which just makes our problem even worse, because then they'll activate another email and start the same process, whatever. And the whole, it just feeds into this cycle. So I guess I just want to ask, what is our process? Is there communication? Is there opportunity given for people to acknowledge that they're doing something inappropriate and to change their behaviour before the blocking takes place? Because I think the communication of expectations and that sort of thing is a key thing to addressing this issue with people before it escalates to a point where we are trespassing them from buildings, we are blocking them on email, we're stopping them from interacting with their social media. Sure, I get it. Some people, even with the warning, won't change, but we have to show, I think we have to show good process.
Thank you very much, Lawrence. Good. Sorry, you've got several questions or points, or?
So the question is, in terms of our internal processes, do we communicate well about the process that is being enacted in response to their inappropriateness?
So who's that to respond? Mark is going to, Mark will respond. Okay.
That's me. Just look very quickly. So specific to the emails, yes, there is an internal process. Before we block the email, we will communicate with the sender of that email. So there are definite steps and procedures that we have to go through. First of all, we actually need to see the emails where we need to actually receive a request to block the emails, and it actually gets authorised by the chief executive. So, but we issue a warning. We do say that we do actually email the sender of those emails to ask them to please stop or refrain, to stop the way in which they communicate with council, or your email will be blocked and when the decision is made to block, we do notify. It would be really good to take that offline to understand. We have got instances where we are receiving a number of emails from the same person with different email addresses. But we also have an unreasonable complaints and vexatious policy. So that is our first mechanism before we block emails. When we start to block emails is when that's the last course of action that we take. And we often put a timestamp on blocking the emails. We'll do it for 3 months or 6 months, and then we take it off. And we communicate that as well. So very happy to take offline to understand that better and to follow that.
But do we have a criteria list that we have and refer them to that?
Yes.
That criteria list, that seems to be.
Yes, in terms of the email blocking, there's an absolute standard procedure, but before we even get to that point, we roll out our unreasonable complaint and vexatious policy. So that in itself has a number of procedures and checking points.
Thank you. Sorry, Darren. Yeah, I think
I just want to add to that if I can.
Please do, yes.
So my priority is the staff in this organisation. That is my priority. And I'd probably take a much more direct approach to that Mark has shared with you. If someone's going to be abusive to staff in this organisation, cut them off. Our people don't come to work to face that. And so they shouldn't have to put up with repeat offenders. Some of the behaviour I've seen in this chamber from members of the public is very different to how they speak to staff, where they purport to be very, very, I'm going to say, obliging and polite to us, when the reality is that they're not. So I'm happy to deal with the abuse, but I don't expect staff to come to work and have to put up with that. So I don't think I've declined an application to cut people off because from what I've seen, the behaviour is appalling. And we need to call that out. We'll continue to do that as an organisation. And my responsibility as the chief executive is primarily for the safety of my staff. So we make no apologies for the way we deal with it.
Thank you, Darren. Bernard.
My question, just to follow up, about the council meetings. They've previously been put up on Facebook very, very quickly. Now, even last night, the council meeting last Thursday was not up on YouTube. I just wondered, has there been a change in policy? There has, a delay before the council meeting is put up on Facebook.
No, there's been no change in policy. It could just be due to a high workload, so that it will be made available as soon as possible.
Okay. Look, I think I'd like to move on. We've got 12 o'clock lunch if you want to have it then, otherwise we'll have it later. But I just wanted to say, before we conclude on this item, paragraph 13, this is a huge list of a huge workload there, in fact. And I guess it's got behind because of staffing issues. We have Kelly now with us, and I think there's been other staffing improvements as well. So I think it's well set out where the work is going to be done, plan quarter 3, plan quarter 4, and so on. I did say at the preparatory meeting we had, I really said, do we, why is this so complex? It was a question I really asked, and I just want to repeat the answer that I got, which I think is very fair. You should bear in mind, it's not just a matter of wordsmithing and writing something. It's a matter of establishing the framework, the information systems which enable it to work, and that's really probably what a lot of the work is, rather than the wordsmithing of the particular policy. So I just want to make that point here, and we should take that into account when we look at this lengthy list of things that need to be done. But it is, we are now informed what the workload is and what the proposed time frame is, and I think that's progress. So I'll just leave it at that, and I propose anybody? No, there's nobody there. So would somebody move that the Risk and Assurance Committee notes the Health and Safety Quarterly Insights Report for the period 1 October to 31 December 24, attached as Appendix 1 to this report. Would somebody please move that? Moved by Councillor Coe, seconded by Lawrence Kirby. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, so please say aye. No, it is carried. Thank you very much. We now move to top 10 organisational. Who's going to take this, Mark?
I am.
You are?
Mr. Chair.
Okay. Oh, look, one thing I forgot when we were just discussing the NCM control findings and so on, and on to internal audit. Is Sharon coming to that?
No,
We
it's just me.
We should just acknowledge the fact that Sharon is retiring, right?
No,
It's not.
no.
Oh, okay. Big pardon. What you want? Okay. Forget about that. Bianca is
30th birthday party.
It was
Confused.
Sharon's 30th anniversary.
oh.
30 years.
I knew there was a party. I thought she was partying because she was so happy to be leaving. Anyway, obviously that's not right. Sorry, my mistake. My mistake. Okay. So Bianca not here. So Mark, we're in your hands for this wonderful multicolored charts and so on, which we receive every meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. but we'll take the report as read. The report, if any updates to the report is highlighted with blue font. And just from our pre-meeting discussion with both Davids yesterday, there was just really a question on could we put an executive summary, because there's a lot of detail in this report. So clearly it's probably not quite hitting the mark, but just on page 59 and 60 is a summary for you to reference to. And yes, there's a bit of narrative, but it's really trying to show you, look, what have been the movements in terms of the current risk rating from the last time we reported to you to when we're reporting to you today. And the trend is either there's been sideways movements, the risk has been reduced, or the risk has been increased. So it's the intention of this report that is a summary to show you the movement. And the movement and the risk is generally reflects the work that's been done on the risk treatments or the changes of controls. So the updates are in blue, and I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you very much. Okay. I see nobody wanting to speak. Can this be? All right.
Well, I've got a couple of points.
Thank you, Liz. Where you go?
I just a couple of comments. One is around the maintaining social license. I think we are seeing a bit of activity. It's an election year.
Yes.
We're seeing some ramping up of criticism of council, and we don't trust council, and et cetera. And I'm not sure if that's reflected in this report. I mean, it's only understandable that it would reach a peak in an election year. I just think we need to perhaps acknowledge that and just say that it's there are extenuating circumstances, but there's a heightened awareness of local matters, shall we say. So that was my first comment, and the second one relates to the iwi relationships, and we have talked about this amongst the members about how there's an interplay there between we've got to review of TWAP, we also need to review our representation arrangements for the next triennium visits, and sort of I think there's a bit of a risk around that in terms of are we kind of prepared enough for that to be able to quite quickly determine what our representation arrangements are in the light of Maori ward. So we've got the three components, the Maori ward, the representation arrangements, the TWAP review. There's a bit of a hodgepodge there, which creates an element of uncertainty around how all that might kind of shape up. And a new council coming in may choose to do things differently. So how are we preparing for that, and what to what extent are we consulting with iwi on representation arrangements for the next triennium? I think that work needs to, something needs to be undertaken now, so that we are ready to put in place that works for iwi. So that's in relation to that. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, Jocelyn, you've got it. Sorry, you're there. Where you go?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so these heaps maps, I really like them. And then you can delve into a bit more detail if you so desire. One of the things too that I struggle to sort of try and relate is the way the detail is written in relation to the actual heat maps. And so, like, for example, Org 1, it talks about all these things in here, but it doesn't actually give you so it gives you these end dates, but then, for example, if you go, it has these end dates, but then if you go up to the actual it's on page 61, you know, which is just this bit. It doesn't actually show you how we've moved from the initial risk rating, and I don't know whether that's the same for all of these individual areas or whether they vary. And so how long it's taken to get between there and the revised risk taking, and with the future one, I think is, you know, it's laid out where that wants to go, but it's that time that we're getting between that initial risk rating when it's been revised, so we have a time frame. And it's almost it's either a 3D thing, which is possible, or it's actually a little bit more conversation around that. So it you know, it looks great that we're moving, but is that actually over a really long period of time, or is it actually quite quickly? And no doubt it will vary for each of these things we're looking at.
Thank you, Jocelyn, but it would be really interesting to see a 3D presentation of these slides, in fact, but that might be rather difficult. Anyway, Mark would like to respond.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Look, I'm actually not sure whether our CAM software could do a 3D, so I certainly won't commit to that. But no, I think the question was, I think what I heard was the heat maps are helpful, but there's no sense of the time frame taken to go from our initial risk rating to our current. And look, that is a fair point. The way the report has been set up, the software that we use doesn't date stamp how long it's taken. It actually date stamps where are we at the current point in time and how far do we have to go. So we can certainly take an action to see whether or not we can do that. There are limitations with the software, but if the general desire of the committee is to have a date stamp on how long it's taken to get to where we are today, then we can certainly have a look at that. In terms of just trying to follow the report, so the heat map on page 61 does show the progression. It shows the grey was what we initially assessed the risk gash. The white circle is where we're currently at, and the black is our target. And then to try and sort of understand what we're doing, it really comes down on page 62. For each of the top 10 organisational risks, we have the controls. And the controls are what we're looking at, those controls, and that's how we're telling you where we're currently at. Our current risk is X. And where you see a control is rated anything less than effective. So on page 62, there are 4 controls on that page that are partially effective. So that is why we aren't sitting at the target risk. And there are work-ons to make those controls effective, and it's coded by way of number. So control number 1 has a partially effective rating, and so if you look at the risk treatments, you look for the corresponding one, and that tells you what we're doing in that space to make that control effective. But certainly take the action to see if we can date stamp how long it's taken to get to where we're at.
Thank you for that, Mark. I think even if there's just a little bit of conversation around it, I think would be quite useful. So I have another question, and I can't actually find where I'm wanting to look, but it talks about climate change in here, but it doesn't talk about improvements, basically how things are changing in relation to our environment. Which one it was now.
Yeah, Councillor, is it on page 73 by any chance?
Well, I'm looking at that one, yeah. So it says 72 there, environmental impact. So that's all 4. Environmental impacts, and really when you look in there, there's absolutely nothing in there on environmental impacts. In that first page on 73, 2.
I see, yes, sorry, councillor, I'm following what you're saying. On page 72, it's a description of the actual risk number 4, and what you're saying there is what you are asking is, do we have a control or a risk treatment that is addressing environmental impact?
Yeah, and I suppose even it's got the causes there, there's no mention there. You know, there is some stuff there that impacts on consequences, but it you know, maybe there could be some better linkages in there.
Yeah, I think we can, I think we'll perhaps we take that offline with you.
Yeah.
We'll
Yeah.
have a look at it. I understand your concern. Just given where we're at with our meeting, we can take that offline, have a look and come back to you on that one.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. That's me done. Thank you.
Thank you, Jocelyn. Now, Lawrence, you're next.
Councillor, want to respond?
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to make a comment, that it is very great to see the movement left and down on all of these risks. Because this is a new document for this triennium. So I'm taking the date on the initial assessment was the beginning of this training when this was created, and we'll be using this new software. And so I just wanted to comment on the great work that SLT and staff are doing to move these organisational risks left and down. That to me, I love seeing that. It says to me we're doing some good things. Yes, there's some work still to be done, and there should and will continue to be, but just an acknowledgement of the work that's been done in this space. So thank you.
Thank you, Lawrence. Councillor Clare, were you waiting for a response on anything? Or just
To a response, yeah,
sorry.
if there is one, I mean,
Yeah. Mark will start, right? Let's try and move on though. I mean, lunchtime is getting close, you know, just to remind you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be very, very quick. So, the first comment was regarding Org 1. Sorry, no, it's Org 2 social license. This actually did come up yesterday in our pre-meeting briefing, and it's obviously still more work to do in that space. But what on page 66 of the agenda, there is 1, 2, 3. There is four controls that have been categorised as partially effective for this meeting, which means there's work on to improve to improve the way in which we maintain social license. But the critical control there is control number 1. So what we often hear is we're not transparent, we're not engaging, we're not involving the community in decision-making processes. So there's been a lot of work in that space. So number 1 is a control that we would not want to see go below effective. So it is a complex risk with many different aspects, but there is definitely work that's in that space. The second point raised was regarding Org 3, failure to get a big Tariki Waitangi. We talked about the representation review. So the representation review hasn't yet been finalised. There's a multi-ward, and the question was, there's work being undertaken at the moment to think about representation arrangements within the multi-ward. Yes, work is underway. We have started thinking about that, but particularly around the memorandum of partnership on page 69. We have a control number 5 called memorandum of partnership, and that is to be partially effective. And there is an update to that on page 70. Control number 5. 2 workshops have been held. And the revised partnership agreement is to be presented to iwi partners and elected members at the final workshop in March. So work is underway.
yeah,
Can I ask this? Just because there's a bit more to that. So in terms of how that then flows into representation arrangements, at the last typical meeting or company meeting, our iwi partners told us that they just know what to do to get through that partnership review, set a foundation, and then continue discussions flowing on from that. So that's what we're honouring as we go through that conversation.
yeah, because my comment was going to be that review that's underway now that we have the workshops on is quite focused just on TWOC It's not on the wider aspects of how we interface with iwi. And that's kind of the missing bit at the moment.
What's next?
But what, yes, next, but yeah, I think it's something we need to, you know. So I've raised it a couple of times. Just wanted to mention it today. Yeah, we need to. Yeah, because when the new council is formed, that's going to, it's going to have to be some quite rapid decisions about how we do the representation side of things.
So that's right, always concerns back to.
Yeah.
David, you're next.
Can I just ask, that when this work is being done, representation work being done, that someone digs into why this committee hasn't had an iwi representative for donks? We just don't care, not interested, discouraged, don't understand what we do. I don't know. I have no idea what the reason is, but it's been a very long time with no iwi representation here. We say we're effective, we're not. And it's someone else is skipping out. So can we just, is there something funny about this committee that iwi don't want to be on it, or I don't know.
A good point, a good point. I'd like to make a comment here. Hara's not
Maybe
here.
we're scaring them off though.
Sorry. Well, look,
Buddy
committee.
I see Hara's not here. We could ask her this question, but I can understand a lot of people taking fright at thought of being on a risk and assurance committee. I can understand that. But I would have thought somebody could say to Hara, surely there's some bright young graduate from Tiwamanga, Araukawa, for example, who's done a degree in marine resource management or whatever, who could be the representative. You know, that we had a RIFRIA here, we would love to see somebody here. And, you know, we've got to make sure that the iwi representation is two-way, not just one way. And that applies to this committee. So perhaps that point could be made to Hara when you see her, that we would like this progressed if at all possible. Well, I know the difficulty of getting agreement on who's going to be who, but my suggestion is think of it of a Tiwamanga Raukawa graduate, for example. All right. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you, Chair. This committee was a little unique in how an iwi rep was appointed, in that it was one person to represent our three mana whenua partners that was agreed on, and the person who was appointed has since resigned, whereas the other standing committees and council, each mana whenua partner has a representative that attends, depending on the workload. We've heard from Kim Tahiwi and Hapua Otaki that their priorities may not always be the same priorities that council have. And so for those iwi who have settled, have more resource available, they're able to focus on the broader issues, whereas those iwis who have not yet settled, but perhaps are going through settlement process, are focused on that. That is a real priority for them, because post-settlement, you have an ability to actually grow your footprint, and actually most recent announcements in relation to what iwi Māori economic growth looks like indicates that from something like 10 billion to 85 billion, you know, which is huge, which plays a part in the community, because we are community. So, but I take your point on board. We've got 2 or 3 meetings left in this triennium. We'll definitely have a Māori ward councillor in the next triennium, which will provide a point of reference for you partners, and of course we will need to have the representation conversation to see what that looks like for us. So thank you, Chair. I'll take those points on board.
Thank you very much. Okay. All right. I think that's nobody else wanted to speak. Therefore, I will ask somebody to move. Just trying to find the word. That the Risk and Assurance Committee receives and notes this report, including Annex 1 to the report. Will somebody move that, please? Lawrence moves it, second by the Mayor. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, no, that is carried. Now we'll move to the internal audit work programme update. Mark, you'll take the lead on this.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Take the report as read. as outlined in the paper, we have had a internal audit work program agreed with this committee, and as it is showing that there are 7 internal audits that have now been completed. 5 of them were completed by February 2025. The summary of those internal audits have been grouped as themes, and that is actually shown on page 95. Importantly, paragraph 13 may be a discussion point today. It is our view that if the findings indicate improvements are needed, no question about that, but the improvements that are needed don't significantly put the organisation at risk, and for that reason it has been rated as low. And I'm sure we will discuss that, but intentionally we haven't circulated the reports, the internal audit reports, to the committee as a whole. We didn't feel that level of detail was necessary to provide to the committee. However, I'm sure we'll have a discussion about that. So that's probably all I'd like to say, and I'd go straight to questions.
On the last point you make, we did have an internal discussion about this question because David and I did receive the reports, the full reports. And I thought we'd come to a general agreement that it is appropriate for the committee to receive the reports. Is that where we're at?
Yes.
Right? Okay. I mean, they're informative. I'm sure they don't, if they contain anything sensitive that needs to be redacted, that can be done. But I think as a matter of principle, that the committee should receive the full reports, and I understand that's been agreed to and will in fact be done from now on, right? That's okay? All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, look, I think it makes sense to ring. I want to compliment Linda Gurin, who's not in, she's the internal auditor.
She's not, unfortunately, no.
Anyway, she's the person who wrote them. I thought they were very clearly written, nicely set out. The limitations they suffer from are not her fault. The limitations are lack of access to certain confidential information, which was decided that the internal auditor should not have, which I think both David and I feel should be looked at carefully, because the internal auditor has some status of independence and a direct link to the chief executive, and I think it is appropriate that, for example, the internal auditor, if you're looking at the gift policy, should look at the gift register. Even if it's confidential, because that's personally confidential, because that can be managed by an auditor appropriately. And in the report itself, anything that requires mentioning of individual names could be redacted. But I think these five reports that were circulated to us, to David and I, which are summarised here, really, there's a common theme there, really, and they need brushing up, you know. They need brushing up. They've been lying around gathering dust. I think that's a reasonable comment, gathering cobwebs. They need revision. They're hard to follow. They're not complete. They may be contradictory. There's no training or introduction. Little or no compliance monitoring. So look, this is a litany of problems in a sense. So I think we look to management to respond to that and get cracking on doing these things. But also, as I've said, make sure that in future this committee does receive the full audit report. So I think that table on page 95 is self-explanatory. I think it's a very good summary. There are other issues that you might like to raise, but I'll throw it open for general discussion. Okay, Bernie, you're first.
Thank you. No, I agree with what you said, Mr. Chair. Is there any intention to retrospectively provide us a copy of this internal audit?
If I can speak, I don't see any reason why it shouldn't be done, right? Sorry. We can look at some redaction.
Just to clarify, so we will be issuing the internal audit reports, full reports with redactions where necessary to committee members. That's what we've said. Whether it goes wider is another decision that needs to be made.
Okay,
Okay, so if it's confidential, then it's up to the individual. The second question, Mark, relates, remember about 6 years ago, Max, the person Max,
Next
he
thing,
gave a talk to all the staff on fraud. Well, I can remember it, and there's even a photograph that exists of this talk that all the staff gathered around. And then, if my memory is correct, I asked, you know, maybe a year or so ago, has there been any other follow-up on this? Giving talk to staff, general talks to staff on board, because I thought when Max organised that, that was, I mean, as an outsider, I thought it was quite reasonable. Your thoughts?
yeah, thank you. So so the short answer is yes. So we are promoting fraud awareness throughout the organisation. Our intranet, which is called Hubcap, has got new refreshed fraud awareness pages. There have been some discussions. It hasn't been 6 years ago at our off-site management days. We took all our people leaders and we had an externally facilitated fraud awareness session done by PwC. So we haven't done it to that extent, but we have done some drop-in sessions. We have updated our website, our intranet. We did do a bit of a promotion of that during Fraud Awareness Week a month ago. So there is work constantly happening in that space, particularly with we see on the page protected disclosures. That is a policy which has become more processes now. So we are actually doing a lot more to make staff aware of what the procedures are for protected disclosures and keeping them safe. So there's a lot more work in that space, but not through facilitated sessions by external consultants. We're doing that more with in-house staff.
David.
Thank you. This is probably one of the more significant things that we've come across our table, and unfortunately it's so late, but in your electoral cycle, but it does go very much to the social objective, to the maintaining of your social license. And in the next 6 months, that's pretty important for you councillors and for people who want to be councillors and for the staff, because they cop it both ways. I do encourage members to read these reports when you get them. I was very unhappy at the idea that half the committee get a report now, they don't. I just don't know how you have a discussion on that basis. Our role is to ensure the council has in place a current and comprehensive risk management framework and make recommendations to the council on risk mitigation. Well, you have it. Among other things, there's an honest employee has no way to make a conflict declaration in respect of a non-pecuniary conflict, like a family relationship type conflict, and there's no non-procurement conflict system. It's just not there. And there are plenty of things that can have conflicts that aren't procurement. It goes around in circles. Even the reports go around in circles. The question is asked: are contractors required to comply with the conflict of interest policy? The answer is no, they're not. But managers are supposed to inform the contractors of the conflicts policy. I don't know how they do that because I can't find it. But so why are they telling the contractors about the conflicts policy if the contractors don't have to comply with it? Make your mind up, go one way or the other. The internal auditor was not allowed to see anything that people in capability held because somebody who apparently has left and therefore everyone throws their hands up, said no. Well, if you don't trust your internal auditor, you've got a real problem. And it just sort of goes on. Updates on conflicts are verbal from time to time when necessary. Well, that's no way to run a conflict system. And I suggest we should be aiming. Companies grown up now. We should be aiming for best practice, not bare minimum. And we're not even at bare minimum. We're not even close to it. And there's a lot of work to be done. A lot of things to be done. I'm not sure how much work's involved. I was sitting reading my papers, staring out at the South Island. So I just Googled Melbourne District Council. And their conflicts policies on the website. You can read it. It's not secret squirrel stuff. Employee conflicts policy should be an open document. What could possibly be secret about it? Plenty of councils and crown entities and bodies just publish councillors' expense claims and senior leadership team claims. They just publish them. No one gives a hoot. They're up on the website every now and then, some journalist says, oh, why did they go to Sydney 3 times? Well, you've got an answer. But it seems to be a sort of, oh, can't tell anybody what's going on, because oh, they might find out something. There's probably nothing to find out, but we simply don't know. You're just sitting around waiting for a disaster to come down the track. This is a really significant thing. So I'm hoping that by next time, by next meeting, we've only got 2 meetings left. I'm hoping that by the next meeting, we're getting something positive instead of this kind of stuff. And as for this report, it says on paragraph 13, these things are considered to be low risk and they do not reflect serious weaknesses. Well, that's all nice and reassuring for you, except if you go to paragraph 10, the first 5 are high risk and the next 2 are moderate. So, you know, you go around and around in circles. This needs action pretty much now.
Thanks, David. Jocelyn, I can see you have a question or comment. Jocelyn?
Yes, thank you. So I just want to understand.
Sorry, no, we can't hear you. Could start again. I'm sorry, there's a sound issue.
Is that better now?
Yep.
Okay, good. So I just want to understand the difference between the topics that are being audited in this internal report versus the one that the very first paper or second paper we had today. Because I know that we often have a conversation around our regulatory space, and but we don't seem to have a really good audit process, or not that I can see, to actually really understand what is going on, you know, where we can make improvements and what's going well in that space.
Response from Mark, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So, look, there is a distinction between what external audit actually do and what internal audit do. So the earlier paper that we've just tabled and discussed was from Ernst & Young, and it effectively reflects what the OAG have considered are the key areas of focus for EY. So we audited by the Officer of the Auditor General, and the Officer of the Auditor General has appointed EY to do it on their behalf. The letter of engagement for our external auditors goes into great detail that they will come in and prepare and do an interim audit whereby they will ask us what our internal controls are, and they will sample that or they'll test that on a sample basis, and they'll provide a view on whether our internal controls are working or not. They will not provide a view on whether those internal controls are appropriate. So that's the difference with internal audit. Internal audit is looking at almost everything, and on page 94, we proposed a internal audit work program with this committee based on the areas that we deemed, if we didn't have internal controls or we had significant weaknesses, they were deemed to be high risk, moderate risk, low risk to the organisation. So internal audit doesn't have a materiality. Internal audit is the controls effective or not, and if it's deemed to be ineffective, then there's an opinion given on the quality of that control. So so they're quite different programs. The external audit will review what the OAG has asked them to review. They'll apply that materiality level of 4 million, and they'll report any audit differences over 189,000. Internal audit, they'll report every single thing that they find that is not working or incorrect. So very different work programs, a very different level of detail. On page 94, there is a correlation. So we have audit mitigation of fraud policy. So what we're saying there, if we don't have a policy to mitigate fraud, that is a high risk to the organisation. We have audited our fraud policy and we have found some weaknesses. Those weaknesses were not deemed to be significant, putting the council at significant risk. There's room for improvement. So there's two different things. We aren't saying that the mitigation of fraud policy is high risk. We're saying if there's no fraud policy in place, it's high risk. I hope that answers your question, Councillor.
Yeah, I suppose it's about, you know, because there are a number of conversations we do have about our regulatory space, and it's about really understanding I suppose from an elected member's point of view, how that is working. And I suppose as a councillor, as a ward councillor, that is often why I get contacted, and I don't actually know the answers. And I think, and maybe it's a bit broader than just an audit, but it's actually understanding. It's not actually necessarily understanding the process, but understanding why, why you have the 20 working days, but things can still take 4 years to get through. And we hear, it's about bad application, poorly filled in application forms and stuff like that. But there must be, I'm sure it's a bigger picture, and I'm just trying to see whether or not, and I think it's appropriate, this committee does capture this topic somehow and actually can drill into it. Sorry, my voice is a bit croaky. So maybe through the chair, maybe that is something that the chair can have an offline conversation about, digging into this topic a bit more for the end of this training.
I'm happy to do that. I'm happy to do that with Mark, all right? So we will do that, Jocelyn, okay?
Right, thank you. Thank you.
Lawrence, you're next.
Yeah. I think I agree with the level of concern that has been expressed by at least one member of this committee around what has been revealed by this internal audit, particularly around these areas that we're talking about: code of conduct, conflict of interest, expenses, gifts and hospitality. What this report doesn't give me is assurance that there is going to be a work program and resourcing put to this in the urgency to ensure that we are addressing these shortfalls. And so I'd like to put to the committee that we add an extra recommendation to this report that requests that staff in urgency put a work program and resourcing appropriate, or at least a report back to us on what that would require. I'm a little bit concerned by the statement made in point 10 in the discussion, but where it doesn't quite make sense to me that there's not enough resources to complete audit recommendations from the chief executive. Whether my question, I guess, after making that statement, my question is to staff and maybe to the chief executive: when you identify that there's not enough resourcing, is that to implement the changes required by recommendations, or is that to do with the work program that has been put in place for the internal audit over this next period of time?
Darren, please. I was just going to say that I think it's important that we identify what part of the organisational structure is responsible for what bits of this, and will therefore have to work on.
Yep, 3. So we've undertaken a piece of work that we've not done at this council before, right? So it's about maturity. So David, Cocker and I take on your comment that we are growing. So when you start to do work that you've not done before, you will find a lot of inaccuracies and a lot of what hasn't been best practice. We've seen that right across the organisation. And so I take my hat off to the senior leadership team and the staff, actually, who have actually allowed me to open Pandora's box and look at what we don't know. So with that comes considerable cost to right the ship. So I've signalled a risk that we don't have enough staff. We have a staffing cap that we have in place here. We have a staffing budget that we have in place here. And we have cost pressures through rates and everything else that we need to deliver in this district. And we're working really hard to hold that. So that's why I've signalled the fact that we don't have enough staff to do everything that we need to do. And 2027 will be a very challenging conversation for the council, because we will be looking at being able to upstaff as we grow and continue to grow and mature and become a bigger organisation as we start to flex to 80,000 people in our district. So yes, that's a risk that I've signalled. We've also undertaken as a senior leadership team to own each of those pieces of work. They now go through the GMs for sign-off, for discussion about what we can do and how quickly we're able to respond. So there will be a work plan that will allow us to work through each of those internal audits and we'll prioritise what we need to do, because we can't do everything at the same time. And we'll work with this committee in providing you with regular updates so that you have a level of confidence and comfort in what the organisation is delivering. So that's us signalling that we've identified some big issues that we need to get ourselves on top of, and that it will happen in due course.
Thank you, Darren. Look, I'd like to move us on. David and Bernie, these will be the last comments, and I note that we have an additional recommendation to be moved by Lawrence, which we will also discuss, unless you want to make another point, Lawrence, right?
Thank you.
So, okay, first of all, David.
Thanks. I understand what you're saying, Darren. You can't do things if you haven't got any rules. And that's pretty basic. But which one of code of conduct, conflict of interest, general expenses, gifts and hospitality, protected disclosures doesn't matter? Which one comes last? Which one do you drop? You haven't got those kind of choices. They're basic management things. You're dealing with public money. It's basic. So I'm not going to support. Well, I'll vote for this receiving report because I don't want to not receive it. But I want to tag paragraph 13 where it says that everything's considered low risk. You simply don't, when you read the report, you realise you don't have enough information to know whether it's low, medium, or high risk. You have no idea. You simply have no idea. And to say, well, we'll toddle along and we'll get going and we'll work through it. That's all good, but as the Deputy Mayor said, we need some sort of timing to it. And I really do think that you can't just sit there and say, oh, it's low risk, we'll be right. You have no idea what because honest staff have got nowhere to go. They don't know how to do it. And if they go to the manager's got no guidance either. So I can't accept that. I'll vote for receipt of it, subject to the minutes recording that. I disagree with, I accept what 13 is the staff's assessment, but I don't agree with it.
Okay. Thank you, Bernie.
Just to
Can
reply
we move on quickly, please? Right.
replying to the Deputy Mayor. Code of conduct, and not all community boards have code of conduct, and therefore conflict of interest may not apply to some community boards. Not all community boards have adopted a code of conduct.
Thank you, Bernard. Thank you. Lawrence, you haven't. Do you want to? Did you want to give notice if you're?
Yeah, well, I can give a draft on. Just scribble one down.
Well, I was going to say that this committee notes the serious issues raised in the internal report, request management provider report, and timetable for addressing the issues raised. That would be,
That's exactly what I've written down.
Okay, have you got that? Oops. It's our secretary. No. All right, I think we'll agree on that. Which I'll put that motion up. So look, I think
I
we've
like
had.
your wording better than what I would just say.
All right, and look, we've got two resolutions here that we note progress and update on the 2024 internal audit work program. The risk assurance committee reached the 2000. Oh, sorry. Where is the 2025 internal audit work plan? There's no reference to it here, is there? Unless I've missed something. It's not here.
I think it's the green item.
The green items.
On the table on page 94, it's green items.
Until the end of the training, so it's those two items there.
Oh, the ones down the bottom.
Yes.
Sorry. Okay. All right. So look, first of all, somebody move number A, the risk and assurance committee notes receipts and progress report. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, will somebody move that? Councillor Coe, seconded by David Cochrane.
Subject to my
We'll
reservation of
record.
13.
But we'll record separately in the minutes that David Cochrane expressed disagreement with the description in paragraph 13 of these being considered low risk. All right?
Yep.
All
Okay.
right, that's fine. Is that, if you got that?
Just doing the wording of the amendments.
Right, what did I say? That
Done A.
that the committee notes that the committee noting the serious issues raised by the 5 internal audit reports, whatever they are. The serious issues raised by these reports requests management to provide a program for addressing these issues to the committee, right? Something like that, right?
And time frame.
It's up on the screen.
Program timeframe, right, there we are. But this notes the theory, right, and this. Yeah, but that seems to me to be fine. Everybody happy?
Yeah.
Okay, so I will put, can we move all together? Is that to be done or not separately?
You can move them all together. I think you've actually done A.
You've done it.
We've done A,
So B
okay.
and C.
I'd like to move B. Things I wrote sort of with help from Lawrence.
C.
C,
B and
Sorry.
C.
Are you moving B and C?
I'll move B and C, noting that help with Councillor Kirby on C.
I'll second it.
Seconded by, I will move the whole lot. Seconded, Councillor Kirby seconds the whole lot. All right, and we've noted David Cochrane's comment on paragraph 13 as a separate minute item. Yes, yes. We need that resolution. I mean, we can record that it has been noted that in future reports, internal reports will be provided to in full to the committee with any necessary redactions. All right, is that okay? So that's just noting.
Yes.
Okay, right. I will, in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, aye. The contrary, done. Thank you, everybody. Okay. Lots of dusting and work here to be done, cobwebs to be cleaned out, things to be done, Darren. It's going to be exciting. Okay, that's cool. All right, thank you very much. It's good. Okay, now legislative compliance. Sarah's coming, right. Thank you, Sarah. I'll leave it to you to introduce it.
So this is the standard legislative compliance report that reports on quarterly survey that staff and group managers complete. So I'll take the paper as read and happy to respond to any questions that you have.
Thank you very much. Sarah, open for discussion and questions.
Happy to make a recommendation.
Right, hang on, the recommendation is that the risk insurance committee notes the legislative non-compliance report for the second quarter of the financial year, blah, 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 as outlined in attachment of this report. Right? Somebody's moving that by the deputy mayor, second by the mayor. I'll put the motion. In favour, say aye. Contrary, no. Carry. Well, thank you very much, Sarah. Been great seeing you.
Yes. She'll be back.
And so will David Cochrane. Okay, team. Gosh, we're making real progress now. I can see those sandwiches will not get stale, and the beef bourguignon won't be cold. So we're looking good, right? So we now have
Yeah, you missed out on that.
and the Sauvignon Blanc will just be nicely cool, right? Anyway, the quarterly treasury compliance, Ian. Thank you very much. We've got this report from Bain Corp, and I said at the comparative meeting, it's nice having this brief report and clear report prepared by somebody else and indicating that we've met all the requirements. So I don't propose to discuss it unless there are other questions or from anybody else here, unless you want to tell us anything in particular, Ian, that you think we don't know but should know, right?
Morning, everybody. I was just going to comment very briefly, as you say, we're compliant with all the policy requirements. I was going to comment on our interest rate management because we have actually been quite active over the last 6 months, increasing the level of fixed interest across our debt. And we do that by way of swap agreements, which for those not familiar with them, basically what happens is we borrow money from LGFA on floating, and then we enter into swap agreements with banks who pay us floating. That offsets the LGFA cost. We pay them fixed. So the effect of that is that the swaps essentially convert our cost to fixed. Over the sort of high interest rate period that we've been through over the last 3 years or so, 22, 23, high inflation and high interest, we have held off entering into any new swap agreements. We went into that period with quite a high level of fixed swaps, which was good. We were sort of 8% plus. That protected us from the high cost period, but gradually, because we haven't gone into any new agreements over those 3 years, our level of cover has quietly dwindled. The markets have now come back in a way that's more favourable for us, and so we've been quietly going back into over the last 6 months and picking up new swap agreements. So we've taken on 12 new agreements with a face value of 208 million. Those are not all immediate. I mean, they're a mixture of duration and start dates and all the rest of it. But the average rate across those is just over 3.5%. So we're quite pleased with the way that's gone. And what that's done is increase the level of, obviously the level of our debt that is effectively fixed. We now sit more comfortably within our policy limits. There's a graph.
Yes.
Page 134 of your agenda. The graph in the top left shows our policy compliance. So the red lines are our upper and lower limits for the policy of fixed rate cover, and then the green area is the amount we actually have. So it's showing, we've got, as at today, 200 million of fixed against a total portfolio of 350. And so we basically want to keep that green area travelling within the red lines.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Lawrence, please proceed.
It's a very small one for me. I took the time to read through some of the details on the swaps on page 136. The 1/3 from the bottom, third up from the bottom, says it starts on the 20th of October 26.
Yep.
So is that one that we're forecasting we'll be taking out in October of next year?
Yeah, so this example is one of the ones we've gone into recently. So when you go into these arrangements, basically we're targeting the most favourable durations, or basically the most favourable offering from the market, which might be in this case what they call a forward start. And so in that example there, you've gone into a swap that doesn't start until October 26th, but then there's a 4-year period that runs after that. So it's giving you longer term too.
Great. I know there are some others that obviously are ahead as well, with predicting forward.
Yeah, and that they're all factored into that, because our commitments are now needed. Yeah, they're factored into the compliance growth, but they haven't yet commenced. So that's the benefit of the impact of them will commence at the agreed start date.
Great. So that's one of the vagaries of swaps in a way.
Yeah.
You can project them forward and that kind of thing. Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, will someone care to move the recommendation, receive and note?
Oh, sorry.
Sorry. Oh, I beg your pardon. Sorry. Sorry.
Sorry, I didn't see it.
This might be a dumb question, but should we move to a CCO for local water done well? What is the impact on our treasury management? How does that interplay?
Yeah, to be determined. So the agreed amount of debt would transfer. As I say, that I'm not actually sure it will transfer, but the effect would be the interest associated with that debt would be paid by the new entity. I think there are legal reasons why actually transferring existing debt is difficult.
So what about the swap arrangements?
The swaps, that would have to be worked through. I would assume there would be some kind of proportional. The benefit of the swaps would be a portion equally, would be my assumption. But that's, the detail of that is yet to be worked through.
That would be my assumption, so
But
effectively.
you wouldn't expect there to be a detrimental impact.
Well, as I say, I would have thought there would be an equal sharing, I suppose, of the benefit of the swaps.
So it's about this with sport.
That issue did come up at the council. That issue did come up at the council meeting on Three Waters, about what amount of out there is related to water would be transferred.
Yeah.
Mr. Pike had a view on that, I think. Of course, he didn't agree with whatever figures we had. But it would have to be done very carefully, obviously.
Yeah, just sort of, thinking about the impact of the arrangements we put in place to fix the interest. Whether there's a potential impact from that, that's all. Is that level for one question or not?
Well, should this happen, we're going to have to look at it very carefully. I think that's the answer. Yeah.
Yes, as I say, I mean, my working assumption would be that the benefit would be proportionately shared, so the effective interest rate would apply to the.
Can I? First set of points. So we've sort of been here before with Three Waters reform, and we had a very attractive swap portfolio. So look, we are looking at it. We are thinking about it. We're kind of juggling two different types of models. So we have in place a new policy with hedges. And when those forwards rates start to go below OCR, or where we think OCR is going to go, we'll take them, because when you transfer the debt for the Three Waters, if it gets transferred, it's still going to, the rest of the council is still going to borrow money to do its project. So yes, we are having to think about this. There's still more detail to work through. We have been here before. Our swap portfolio is largely in the money. So banks never lose. So you have to buy your way out of swaps. And when you're in the money, you actually start to earn some money. When we were working through this with DIO, they weren't keen on that. And so they put in place provisions that we couldn't do it. So yeah, we will continue to look at it. There isn't a black and white answer at this stage, but we're balancing how much debt are we taking for Three Waters, how much debt are we taking on for other things like libraries. So it's Treasury Management is looking after the whole council, but we're not at the maximum. We're not at the upper limits of the swap portfolio. So as Ian said, we are making sure that we are within our limits, but we're at the midpoints, and we will take on swaps. We haven't taken on swaps for 3 or 4 years, and so we're only taking on swaps. We know we're still going to have a sizable amount of debt on the books, but we're looking at where are those swap rates attractive to the organisation, whether you're shifting the debt or not. But we are looking into that, and we'll continue to look into that, and that'll be conversations that we'll be having in the near future.
Right, thank you very much. Nobody else? Right. Would somebody move the recommendations that we receive and note A1 and A2? Moved by Lawrence, seconded by moved by Lawrence, seconded by seconded. Councillor Coe was seconded. Okay, I'll put the motions to all those in favour say please say no. The ayes have it. Next item is our continuing work program, future work program. Let's see. This is page 140 with the attachment 142 really is the important thing, right? Okay. I've discussed this with Mark. I raised the issue of insurance. This is something that we indicated would come back at some stage during this triennium. So
the July meeting.
So that will be added to the July meeting. You'll note that we've got an emergency response and recovery on July, and that will be, I think we'll probably have an emphasis on recovery, seeing as we've had the response today, but probably both. All right, we'll work that out. Okay. The other point I would note, because we have been seeking to provide a home for things like debt management, credit rating, and emergency management through this committee. We did talk about Three Waters before, but Three Waters is now well and truly a council issue for the whole council. So we don't need anything specific on that. So there we are. So any comments? If not, will somebody move that we approve the forward work program? Oh, sorry. All right, Dave. Go ahead, Dave.
Have we covered off somewhere the outcomes from the internal audit? The actions following that? Hold on, does that come into this anywhere? It doesn't. I'm not sure where it fits. But I'd like to know that it's on our agenda for next, we've only got 2 meetings.
Now, we've got internal audit update, and I should see it coming under there, right? It's the second item for the July meeting, right? Right?
Okay, yep. Sorry.
Okay, so it is, I move from the chair that we approve the forward work program as set in Appendix 1. Will someone second that, please?
Yeah.
Thank you, Lawrence. All those in favour will say aye, contrary, carried. All right. That's almost there.
You vote against it.
Three recommendations.
So where are we now? So we've got to accept the minutes of the previous meeting. Where is that?
Confirmation minutes, page 143.
Well, there's only one page there. Goodness me. Okay. Oh, there they are. All unconfirmed. Will someone move the confirmation of those minutes? Moved by the mayor. I'll second it. I observed the whole meeting very closely from London.
Point of order. Was the mayor there?
Oh, was I there? I think I was on too.
Or were you?
Maybe we
Yeah, follow.
Okay.
In that case,
I was there because I chaired. I'll move it.
and he did a fine job too, by the way. Thank you very much, David. Moved by David Cochran, seconded by me. Well, I was there from London. I won't make that.
I know, you did snore a few times.
I did not. I was wide awake and riveted the whole time. So I move accordingly. So it's moved according. All those in favour say aye, contrary. It's carried. Okay, I now move the resolution to move to.
No, there's no live stream.
Who needs? Anybody? Nobody needs to leave. No?
Picture.
Okay.
There is a visual, just going to, if we could just pause for 10 seconds. Thanks, David.
Why doesn't somebody else move it? David, you please move the exclusion.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Thank you. Moved by David Cochran, seconded by Councillor Coe. All those in favour say aye, contrary. It is carried. We are now in public excluded.